So yeah, getting this thing started. If you want to give us a little bit about your background, where you came from, and then how you got on the wavelength of Microdose U, and anything else about your journey so far, and yeah, from there we can get the ball rolling.
Sounds great, Gary. So yeah, and I'll share this with you. Everything's connected. So even when I tell you a little bit about my journey as a doctor, I'm right now I'm a retired dentist. I went to dental school many years ago, practiced dentistry for quite some time. The reason I say everything's connected is because this story is very, very pertinent. When I was practicing as a dentist, I knew in my heart it's not the kind of thing I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I was always thinking about it as I was seeing patients. I was like thinking, like, what can I do to make my life better and have more purpose? And I just knew I didn't want to do this forever. So
I'm just
I,
picturing you looking in people's mouth like, there's got to be another way, man. There has to be.
well, it's funny. It was kind of close. So I remember there was this piece of artwork in my treatment room, one of my treatment rooms, and I'd be working on a patient. I'd look up at the wall, and there's this piece of artwork, and it had like a glass, I guess, a glass cover over the art, and I guess kind of see my reflection a little bit as I was looking at the piece of art. And I always said to myself, like, I was probably in my 30s, I'm guessing, and I said to myself, the patient never heard this, thank God, but I said to myself, I don't want to be looking at my reflection and doing the same thing when I'm 60. I said, it's not, I just don't want to be doing this. So
Mhm.
I kind of came up with some other ideas, and I stayed in dentistry, but I opened up a business where my brother, who's also a dentist, we were public speakers and coaches, and we owned a big dental conference. So we were helping people in dentistry all over North America without me having to practice, without me having to have my fingers in people's mouths all day. And this was like, it went on for decades. It's still going on. My brother still runs it. I took a sabbatical only because I was starting to get burnt out from it. I mean, it was great work. We traveled all over the place and speaking on stages from anywhere from 10 people to 3,000 people. It was really, really cool. We were kind of like it's kind of like, if there's a such thing, I was kind of like a dental rock star. Like in the profession of dentistry, I was
Uh-huh.
well known, or still am well known, but outside of dentistry, I was a nobody. So that was good for me, good enough for me. But towards the end of that gig, at least for me, with the speaking and the consulting and the coaching and stuff like that, I was really starting to feel like I was getting burnt out. Again, it was going on for decades, and I was feeling burnt out. I was feeling a lot of anxiety. I didn't really know why, but I just wasn't feeling right. And my wife and I decided, we lived in Maryland at the time, lived in Maryland all my life, basically. And we decided a few years back, that we wanted to make a move. We love the mountains. We love winter sports. All the things that go along with the mountains and the snow and everything. So we decided to sell everything we owned and move to Salt Lake City, Utah. And so basically we sold almost all of our possessions, either sold, donated. We bought an RV, a little RV, very small RV, and so the RV, along with our cat and our what little we had left, we just moved to Salt Lake City and rented a house. Just didn't even want to buy anything. Just didn't want to commit to that. So and kind of started our life over. And it's been a blast. But however, once we moved, for some reason, I could never figure it out. I was still dealing with this extreme anxiety, which turned into some depression as well. And I had nothing to be anxious about. I couldn't figure it out. But I just had this almost all day long and all night. I could just feel like this. It was very hard to describe.
Some
But
angst.
it was just like a really, really tough feeling. And some days I just didn't feel like doing anything at all. And I mean, here we moved to our like paradise, and I was feeling weird every day. So I started seeking out the advice of a psychologist. I'm sorry, psychiatrist. He put me on meds, and some of the meds were not that great. And it seems like things kept getting worse and worse. And one night, I remember in the middle of the night, I woke up to use the bathroom, and I just felt like really, really weird. And I just felt like not good. And so I just went downstairs, took my blood pressure, and it was super high. It was like close to 200 over something. And I woke my wife up and I said, you got to take me to the ER. I think I might be dying. And I didn't have a smile on my face like I do now when I said that. I was really, really scared, Gary.
Yeah.
So we went and they kind of calmed me down and did some stuff there. And I came home and basically I was on pharmaceuticals for this anxiety and depression for some time. And we had to tweak them because some were working, some were not working. But it got to the point where I was on Lexapro and some benzodiazepine, Valium, as needed. And I just felt like it was working okay, but there has to be something better. I just don't want to be feeling like this and taking these pharmaceutical meds for the rest of my life. This isn't what my life is supposed to be like. I'm still, relatively young. At least I like to think that. But I just felt like I was getting in worse shape. I just couldn't do stuff that I used to do. So that's when this was about 2 years, almost exactly 2 years ago, as we're recording this. I started looking into magic mushrooms and psilocybin and microdosing, and I just immersed myself into this culture. I couldn't get enough information. I was reading, I was watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, and I said to myself, like, I've got to try this. There's basically nothing to lose, everything to gain, and I just can't keep going all the way I'm going. And I just tried. I found out how to get it, and remember the first morning I ever. Now I'll back up because I'm a product of the 60s and 70s. I mean, I was in high school in late 60s, early 70s, graduated. So everybody was using drugs. I mean, marijuana was like all over the place. And a lot of my friends were using other things, which I never really did. But I was pretty comfortable with, around cannabis and everything. So, but I didn't know what to expect from microdosing. I had never used a psychedelic at all in my life. So I remember the first morning it was in a capsule. I ate this capsule. I'm thinking like, okay, what's going to happen? So I just turned on the TV and watching some stuff on TV. And I remember a commercial came on, and it was probably about an hour or two after I dosed. And I just started like just laughing at this thing. And I don't know whether this was a placebo, but I just felt like everything was funny. And I walked over to the park across the street from my house, right out there, basically, right there. And I just started walking around, and I had headphones on, and I was listening to Sergeant Pepper. And I said to myself, "This is my new life." This is after the very first microdose. Again, it might have been a placebo. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, does it? But
No.
I started feeling better, and I started microdosing to a regimen. And I want to just make it clear, because a lot of people are watching this, and I've got a lot of followers to my show, to my podcast, Microdose U, and a lot of people they get upset if it doesn't start working like right away. Everybody's different. For me, it did start working right away, but for some people, it could take a few months. Just be patient, stick with it. But it did change my life, and over the course of 2 years, I've learned how to tweak it. I've learned what to expect. I've learned some of the work to do alongside of it. And right now, I said to my followers the other day, I said I haven't microdosed in right now it's been probably 5 or 6 weeks, and I'm just kind of testing to see what it's like to be not having to microdose, because the medicine has done its work. And
Mm-hmm.
Gary, as I sit here and I'm talking to you, I mean, I feel really, really good. I mean, there's no anxiety, there's no depression. I just feel good about my life. I'm doing things now physically that I wasn't able to do back then when I was feeling lousy. So this really works, and it's been probably one of the most significant things I've ever done in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Long answer to a short question there.
No, that was great. That was awesome, to be honest with you. Yeah, I feel you, because I'm also a microdosing veteran, and you described it very, very well. And it's almost like a miracle, right? It's almost like, whoa, how do they? I mean, it's coming out now. The word's coming out now, but how is this kept under wraps for so long? And
Yeah, yeah.
are you on any pharmaceutical medication right now, or did you get off the meds?
Oh, that's okay. Great question. I did. Yeah, I left that out. So about let's see, where are we now? It's been probably about a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me. So okay. So let's say my microdosing. I know it's not probably good not to date these things, but I'm going to use some dates anyway, just to give your viewers a sense of timeline. So I started microdosing in like April of 2021. We're in 2023 now, right? So about 2 years ago, and then I was on Lexapro, and I was on benzo as needed. Like my doc said, like if you just feel like the Lexapro is not really working, you're having a bad day, just take a Valium, a small dose. But almost immediately, I was able to say I don't need the Valium anymore at all. Like that was almost immediately. I kind of
Yeah.
stopped that, never to use them again. The Lexapro, it's a little different because it's an SSRI, and you can't just cold turkey it anyway. And it does work. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that pharmaceuticals don't work at all. They do work. It's not the kind of thing I wanted to be on for the rest of my life, and they don't work as well as the microdosing, but they do work. So I after several months, I started weaning off very slowly. So I would say about probably 8 or 9 months into my microdosing journey, I was able to wean off the Lexapro totally. So to answer your question, I'm on no pharmaceuticals whatsoever for mental health. Zero.
Yeah. That's amazing. That is a
Yeah,
miracle
it
right there.
really is. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the differences between the pharmaceuticals and microdosing, or the holistic path, I guess one could say, is that the pharmaceutical path is a way to, yeah, it does work, but is it really a path to healing? Is it really a path to really, I guess you could say, get over your ailment, or just being able to truly be happy without it? When you, like you mentioned with microdosing, it's not something that you needed to take every day per se. And you said you haven't done it in 6 weeks, right?
5, 6, yeah, a little over a month, 5, 6 weeks, something
Yeah,
like that.
you
Yeah,
haven't done it in 5, 6 weeks, and yet you feel, exuberant. You feel great. That's the
yeah.
big difference. Is it's like the classical model, and yeah, it does work. It does work. I'm not hating on it, but the classical model is more something that you rely on to just feel normal, to feel like a sense of equanimity in your life, I guess. But then with the microdosing regimen, it actually like leads you to a path ultimately where you don't need the microdosing. You don't even need the mushrooms, right? And if you do need it, if it does, if you do get the call, you answer it, right? But it's not
Mm.
something you have to rely on every single day. It's really like a path to change up how you see the world, and I guess physiologically a way to change your brain. And that's so huge, man. Like neurogenesis. I'm pretty sure you've heard about that, and anyone listening has probably heard about that. The way to like literally change up how your brain's wired. That's so powerful.
It's exactly
Yeah.
right, because the again, Lexapro has, and anything in the same class as SSRI has its purpose, and it does work, but it works by basically allowing more, blocking the reuptake of serotonin. So while you're using it, it's working to make you feel better. But like you just said, you're exactly right. It's not healing you. As you get off of it and as it leaves your body, you're going to feel exactly the way you did before you took it, because it's just you're not it helped you while you're using it.
Mm-hmm.
With the magic mushrooms, with psilocybin, they're actually rewiring your brain. They are healing you. They're causing healing, that's the path I decided to go, and it
Yeah.
absolutely worked.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So how would you describe how you see yourself, the world, or anything really differently from mushrooms? So not only like how you feel differently, but how did it change
Mm.
your viewpoint on life altogether?
Yeah, it's a great question, Gary, and it's I'll try to explain. I think some things I probably can't explain, but so the first answer I'll give you is they definitely change the way you see life, the way you feel about life. One of the biggest things is, and I can't really put it into words, and I can't verbalize it, but time. They've made me realize that there's something about time that we as humans are not really programmed to understand, but there's this timeline of our lives, and actually not even our lives, but there's this timeline of like the whole, like everything. And there's something about that timeline that I feel like, how can I say this? I feel like everything has already taken place, and we're kind of like we're seeing our lives in like this tiny, tiny little space on a timeline, but everything's already taken place like before and after, and we're just here and we feel it. I've gone. Are you familiar with float deprivation, sensory deprivation float spot? Are you familiar with that at all?
Very familiar. Yeah, I used to
Oh
do it
yeah,
at least once a week.
yeah. It's like it's the greatest. So a couple months ago, I was floating. I try to float. I try to float once a week if I can, but these days I haven't been doing it as much. Um, but I was I was using some plant medicine before I went in, and that's just it's a perfect thing because for your viewers that don't know what it is, it's basically you go into this float spot. It's a shallow little thing, but it's got so much salt in it. You float, and it's room temperature, and all the lights are off. You're in this little private pod kind of, and all your senses are taken away because you're floating, and there's no light, there's no sound. It's just you floating. It's almost like you're floating in the universe. It's an amazing experience. And if you've never tried it, you got to try this. But
Mhm.
so a short time ago, I was floating, and I was taken back to see. I've always thought in my adult life, I always thought that my childhood was not really that great, and I had some trauma, and I had some just weird things from my childhood. But I was actually taken back in time to my childhood, in particular, I think junior high, or I think they call it middle school these days, but and high school. And I saw myself, and I felt I was in that time, and I felt like my life was not as bad as I thought it was.
Mm.
Here I am, and so I was kind of like feeling. I was actually feeling that I was back in that time. So to answer your question, one of the major things I feel is that we don't understand time like it really is, and I can't explain it, I can't describe it, but it's a really strong feeling. And there's a lot more. There's a lot more. I just feel like there's much more to this universe than we would ever be able to explain.
Yeah,
But
that's for sure.
there's a lot going on out there, and maybe in subsequent sessions I'll be able to figure out a little bit more. But I think our brains are not programmed to really figure this all out,
Hmm.
even with plant medicine.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that's what plant medicine and the psychedelic experience does is it opens us up to the grand mystery that we're in. And it in the sessions that we're in, it shows us these things and these revelations. And then we come back, try to explain it. It's like, oh, you just can't because it's just like it's so magnificent in the moment. And you just there's no way that words can really do it justice, right? But ultimately, what I like to say is that psychedelics show us that there's more than meets the eye to the human condition. I agree.
That's a great way to phrase it. There's so much more, and yeah, like you just said, it's very difficult to explain. But people that get into this world will be they understand what we're talking about if they if
Yeah.
they they get into this world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting what you describe. It's like it allows you to go back into your childhood and view it from a different perspective and to see that it wasn't so bad after all. It maybe for you and for others, maybe it's a way to almost transcend our trauma or at least our perceived trauma from our childhood, and just being able, because I think that's really, we're all traumatized in one way or the other. And I think how we get over it per se is we just see it in a different light. Maybe we examine it in a different way, and that maybe is in a way literally our brain drawing different neural pathways from how it was throughout the years. It's just that's the act of that is us being able to see it differently, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's what
totally, totally.
psychedelics I think they allow us to just view our life differently. Like, yeah, you can have these grand revelations, but ultimately it just allows us to analyze the human condition and your place in time a little bit differently. Ultimately, yeah, you can have these like grand movies of the mind, but ultimately we come back and for some reason they seem, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, they seem very beneficial to our way of life. You know what I mean? Like they seem proactive in us creating a better quote unquote sober life. You know what I mean?
I totally understand what you mean. And to take it to a little bit of a different level, I also feel not only the past, but I feel like if I imagine something that I'm going to be doing in the future, especially the near future. I haven't really tried this so much with like the distant future, but I really feel that I can tell what's going to happen. I feel like
Mm,
I can feel what's going to happen in my future. Certain things that I've like planned, and I can tell how they're going to go. It's really amazing.
yeah.
And it usually turns out to be accurate. I can't say 100%. I've had a few that didn't come out exactly the way I thought, but I'd say 90% have come out the way I thought they'd come out.
That's pretty powerful, man.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah.
But
See, that's
interesting. I'll just share
good.
something else with you as we're talking here.
Hmm.
I shared a little bit about my dental business that I had with coaching and consulting and speaking, and I did a lot of speaking and a lot of podcasting and a lot of interviews like this. And so the reason I want to bring that up is because in my past, I'd be sitting here and I wouldn't, for some reason, I don't know if it was my breathing or whatever it was, I wouldn't be relaxed. And at the end of an interview, the end of a podcast, the end of a show, whatever I was doing, I felt like I needed to decompress for like hours. And I felt like my blood pressure was up. I felt like just something was really weird. But as compared to right now, after 2 years of microdosing and really working on myself, I mean, I feel like I couldn't be more relaxed right now. And it's talking to you, and it's you're a friendly guy. But I've talked to a lot of friendly guys in the past, and for some reason, even with friendly people, I would just start to feel horrible. That whole feeling is totally gone, and I'm just sitting here chatting with you, and I am like 200% relaxed. It's amazing the way my body has changed, my body and mind.
I believe it, man. Yeah. It's unfortunate because we live in a world where it's still demonized from where we're still living in the shadow of the drug war where people think it's
Hmm.
just a some kind of escape or just trying to see some colors, see the dragons or something like that and just trying to get high, right? But it's not like that at all. Once you do it, it's like, whoa, it's not at all the picture that's painted in the popular culture. It's really not. And I think you realized that the first time you took it, right? You went for a walk in the park. You probably like, I know I did too, personally speaking, the first time I took it, I'm like, what? This is this is not evil at all per se. This is not like the
No.
way that it's portrayed at all in popular culture. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I'm just saying it's an unfortunate thing that I mean, we're living in a time where we're having this conversation. It's going to be published on the internet, and plenty of other people are speaking about the benefits of it. But it's still a Schedule One substance,
Yes.
right? Or
Yeah.
Schedule Two, whatever. It's a felony, right? At least in the United States,
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
still highly illegal. And there's so many people on this planet that I know that could benefit from psychedelic therapy or microdosing, and they just don't one know about it. Two, if they know about it, don't have the access to it, or three, are just scared of the whole experience. When in actuality, it can be so beneficial to the whole human race. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you want to work off of that. I'm just kind of going off on a little emotional rant about how.
No, it's so true. And it's funny. I just did this was my latest podcast episode was released today. And I got a question from somebody about should I microdose or should I dose my children?
Mm,
And so I said, I answered the question on my show and I said, I'm going to answer that for myself. Would I microdose my children? And I said, absolutely, yes, 100%. But then I had a caveat. My kids. I have two kids. They're in their mid to late 30s right now. So I wouldn't microdose like a 15. I wouldn't. That's a whole different topic.
yeah, yeah.
But it led me to think back. Okay, when I was the age that my kids are right now, which is let's say mid to late 30s, when I was that age, if I would have been able to have access to or utilize this medicine the way I know about it now, I'm wondering how different my life would have been because I would have seen things that I was going through, some trauma from a first marriage, my profession. I would have seen some of these things in a totally different light, and I possibly could have made changes back then. Whereas back then, unfortunately, I didn't have access to this, and I kind of just like went with the program, like did what everybody else thought the way I should live my life. The right job, the right
Mhm.
profession, the perfect marriage, which was not, but I had to play the part.
Yeah.
So it's funny. If I would have had access to this in my 30s, I would say my life would have been like drastically improved.
Yeah.
So yeah, so people should have access to this. I think it could almost anybody, because it's not just, let's say you don't have mental health issues. Let's say you want to be more in tune to your work or to your family or to your loved ones, or more creative. The list, it goes on and on and on. I find myself skiing better since I've been microdosing. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like our allies. They really are.
Yeah.
It's like if you respect what the plant intelligence, some may say there's plant spirits, who knows? But either way, I do feel like if there is some kind of intelligence to these things, they're on our side. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like
Definitely.
these
Yeah.
things work with us. I mean, they definitely can be abused as well. There's definitely ways that one can get themselves in some sticky situations if it's not the right set or setting, per se. But ultimately, I think if it's well respected, it's only going to be beneficial for one's well-being.
I'll share something with you, Gary, that was funny. So when I first started 2 years ago, I remember I was so excited and I felt so good. What's the first thing you do? Of course, I went to Facebook and posted. I did a post on just my personal profile about how I just tried microdosing, and I feel so good. And I kind of went on in a little bit, and I still remember this date. Like, I got a lot of positive response, but somebody that I'm actually pretty close with, she gave me like this big thumbs down. Like, in other
Oh
words,
no.
I took that to mean like, you're doing something illegal. This is terrible. You're a drug addict. I took it to mean that. But then I'm thinking, like, okay, this person that gave me the big thumbs down, she drinks alcohol.
Oh
And
yeah.
I will go on record and say there is zero question, even though alcohol is legal, there is zero question in my mind that this is not only safer than alcohol, but much more beneficial. Alcohol, I don't see as beneficial in any way. Now, I'm not against it. I don't. I have maybe a couple drinks a month, if that. I'm not against it, but it doesn't help your life in any way. This does change your life in a positive way, for sure. But so I still remember that big thump, like, you are a bad person.
That's ingrained in your soul now, that thumbs down.
At least I can laugh about it. I never,
Yeah.
I never, I never said anything to her. I just kept it quiet, never said a word. And, it's okay.
Yeah, man, I believe it. It's just ultimately it's just people falling into the propaganda of the drug war, like I mentioned. It's still there,
It
unfortunately. But
is.
hey,
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time at this point. Some people are gonna get it, some people aren't, but I think it really is just a matter of time. And every day that goes by, more and more people are slowly waking up to the fact of the power of not only mushrooms but all psychedelics and psychedelic therapy. And I think it's becoming a at this point like a new thing for psychiatric health. I mean, I'm not too into that field, but I follow it a little bit, and some experts in that field, and they say like this is the thing right now that people are interested in. So interesting times we're living in for sure. That thumbs down lady might be a thumbs up lady in a few years. Who knows?
I'm
But we'll
hoping. I'm
see.
hoping, because God knows I know she could use some herself. I know,
Yeah.
but it's interesting. So a couple things. When I first started, I did ask my psychiatrist. Not that I was going to really go by his yes or no, but I did try to get his blessing. I said, he's a really cool guy I go to, and I said, I've heard about this microdosing. I said, what? And this is when I was, going in, and I was on Lexapro, and things were seemingly going well. But I said, what do you think about me trying microdosing? And without hesitation, he said, absolutely yes. He said, I've got patients that have tried it, that are using it, and I've heard great results. He couldn't like officially prescribe this, but he said absolutely yes. And then I remember, I don't know, it might have been 6 7 months later, I kept up my appointments, and I still go every once in a while just to check in and just let them know how I'm doing. And I remember, yeah, it's probably about 6 months later, I went in and I said, Doc, I wrote down a whole bunch of things that I've learned from this microdosing, these things that, like, well, why my life is the way it is. Like, and he looked, and I read the list, it was a list of maybe 5 or 6 things. I don't remember exactly, but he listened to me as I read this list, and he said, Dave, I've got to tell you that the things that you've realized about your life would have taken 10 to 20 years of talk therapy to get this realization. He said this microdosing has helped you incredibly realize like what's going on and what has gone on in your life. And it was amazing. It was
Hmm.
really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful, man. Yeah, that's really powerful. I know, I don't know if you want to take this example to be the standard, but Timothy Leary said after his first mushroom trip that he learned more about the mind in his trip than he did in his, what, 10 years of schooling, and he was a Harvard professor. So, I mean, some people agree with Timothy Leary, some people disagree with how he went about it. But I think just that statement right there and your
Mm,
statement goes to show about how powerful these things are and how efficient they are, how
absolutely.
well they work with our brain to just,
Yeah.
I don't know, just almost like create a different brain, not create a different brain, but like just
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I know exactly.
just grow ultimately as a
And you
human
and you
being.
feel, yeah, and you feel different. You feel like the way
Yeah.
I feel every day now, and and like Gary, it's hard to put into words, but the way I feel every day is very different than the way I felt 2 years ago every day, or
Yeah.
20 years ago. It's a better feeling for sure. But I'll tell
Hmm.
you something, the other end of that spectrum with my doctor, it's funny. I just had a physical with my primary care doc probably about 3, 4 months ago. And when I went I fill out a new intake form, and one of the questions was, I think, do you use any type of recreational drugs? And even though I don't consider these recreational, I want it to be totally transparent. I want to, I don't, I want my doctor, and I'm not embarrassed, and I want my doctor to know what I'm doing. I think it's
Yeah.
only fair.
Hmm.
So I did fill out, I think I filled out something like I microdose psilocybin for my mental health. And so when I went in for the exam, she questioned me about that. She said, "Oh, I see you're using." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, I'm going to recommend that you don't." Now, let me just tell you something. Let me back. I love her. She's a great doc, and she's helped me with a lot of my health issues. She's um, she's helped me with a lot of things, and so she's really good. So changing docs is not an option. But I said to her, but I think she's old school also, and I said to her, "Well, why? It's really helped me. Why do you think that? Why do you think I shouldn't do it?" And her answer was, "Well, because these are psychedelics." And I
Oh,
said, that was her answer. That was her answer.
hmm.
And I said, and she said also they could lead to very old school, but these could lead to other things. And I said, no, no. I said, I know they're psychedelics, and you don't have to worry. I'm not. I don't have the personality. I don't have an addictive personality at all. I said, doctor, you don't have to worry. And she kind of let it go, but I could just tell she didn't know enough about them, and that was okay. It was fine with me.
Hmm. Well, I think that's our job. People that are into this or have been into this in the past, um, paving the way through a how do I put this? Just not being the guy with dreadlocks in a tie-dye shirt going to raves. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love the hippies, but like being a stand-up person, you know what I mean? And seeing that the doctor, you literally mentioned to her that you're microdosing psilocybin, and she could see who you are and see that you're level-headed, you're a stand-up
Right,
guy,
right, yeah, yeah.
you're articulate. So maybe in that moment, maybe not, it planted a seed in her brain to look at psychedelics. If she's open minded, or anybody that's open minded would look at you, and it would plant a seed in their mind to be like, hey, maybe these things aren't so evil after all. So I think that's what I'm trying to say is that's what our goal should be, I guess, is to just plainly educate by being um what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think about just
I
like.
don't know, like proponents of like advocates, proponents. Is that what
Yeah,
is that
but it's like
what
just naturally being an advocate by just being yourself, like not trying
yeah,
to like
yeah,
put it in
yeah.
anybody's face, just like being natural about it and showing that you're a regular human being just like anybody else, and you're using this just as a way to just find a sense of well-being in your life, and you're not doing it to trip out, man. You know what I mean? So I guess it's just like I feel as though people that are experienced with microdosing, that should be, I mean, there's no should or shouldn't. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but I feel in my life, I feel like I should, having this experience and this knowledge, um, be like the guiding light to this thing to hopefully plant seed in somebody's mind if they don't know any better. And I think anybody I mean, I naturally I feel just a slight obligation to do that, right? So
Mhm.
I think we all do to a certain extent. If you're a quote regular person, I feel like that's just the path at this point, is to keep just planting the seed in people's minds, and then maybe if even if it changes one person to think about
Mhm.
psychedelics a little bit differently, and they go on Google and they search, there's plenty of things that we can search, and there's plenty of research coming out now. Um, if that's I mean, what am I trying to say here? I'm kind of getting lost in my words. I feel as though that's what we should do as relatively normal people, quote unquote,
Mhm.
is to just
Mhm.
shine the light by being an example of just yourself. You know what I
No,
mean?
it's very true. I mean, and it's funny you said that because I didn't feel good just leaving it like that. I just felt like something needed to be there needed to be a little bit of closure. So like a week or two later, we were chatting on a video conference, and I said to her, I said, Doctor, I just want to talk to you again about what we talked about a couple of weeks ago about microdosing and psilocybin. And I just made it clear to her, look, that this changed my life, and you can look at me. I'm not like
Yeah,
I'm a normal guy. It's not doing anything bad to me. I'm not a partier. I'm not taking this for like not that there's anything wrong with some people doing it, but I'm not taking this to party and, like you said, go to raves or just trip out and do crazy things. I'm taking this for my mental and spiritual and physical health.
yeah,
It helps all of those, and then she kind of let it go, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it. But you're like you and I are both taking it to the next level, because not only do we use this in our own lives, but we are talking to other people, every day as we do these types of shows. So I think
yeah.
that's, and like you said, I love what you just said. Even if I help just one person, I say that all the time. I say sometimes even at the end of one of my shows, I say if I just help one person, then it's made my day. But I have a feeling I've helped a lot more than one person, and I know you're feeling the same way for sure.
I think so. Yeah, I hope so.
No question about it. I mean, with a
Yeah,
shirt like that, Gary, you're helping people just by walking around in public.
right. Just by existing, right?
Exactly.
Hope so, at least. That's funny, man. Um, yeah, this is good, man. I think it's just up to us to just normalize it at this point,
Yeah,
because
and
we come from a world where it's just like it's almost scary, and people are turned off by the scariness and the extremely illegality of it. So I think it's just up to us to make it not so not so airy fairy. It's not this like crazy, because like your doctor said, it's because it's a psychedelic. Well, you would say yes because it's a psychedelic, right?
that would be a great response. That would have been a great response. I wish I would have had you.
Yes, of course.
But even for people, even for people that don't are not experiencing mental health issues such as depression or anxiety or PTSD. The list goes on and on and on. But I mean, I'm speaking to somebody now who wants to be like more creative or feel better about their everyday life. And I'll share something with you. So a short time ago, after microdosing for and again, so getting back to what you just said, also, we're mainly talking about microdosing. At least I am. So there's nothing to be afraid of. It's a microdose. It's a tiny fraction of a regular
Yeah,
full therapeutic
it's
dose.
quite
But
benign.
it's very benign. I mean, you go about your day, and it works in the background. But it allowed me to a few months ago. It allowed me to go back on a stage and believe it or not, in front of a fairly nice sized audience, do stand up comedy.
Oh
And
wow.
I used to do a little bit of stand up comedy. Is extremely difficult. I mean, I could be a speaker. I could go on stage and talk about something that I know about and with ease and do very well. But stand up comedy is extremely difficult. But it gave me it gave me the feeling that I want to try this again. And even though I'd say I'd probably give my looking back at my performance a few months ago, I give myself about a 7 out of 10, which is fair, but I did it. I did it. I
Hmm.
felt good about it. And if I want to continue doing it, I could do it more, and I'll probably get better and better. But this wonderful medicine was the impetus that helped me get back on stage in front of an audience, and and if I bombed, it was okay too. I just felt like I just wanted to do it. I wanted to get up there and
Yep.
try it. So people that, that are not experiencing necessarily mental health issues, it will help creativity. It'll help relationships. It'll help the way you see things totally differently. I mean, I just think it's almost for everybody if they
Hmm.
choose. If they choose.
If they choose, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Amen to that, man.
yeah,
Terence McKenna
yeah.
says it
Amen.
it dissolves boundaries. So I think it not only
Yeah,
dissolves
yeah.
boundaries like between other people when you're like, we don't have, I think we all in a certain sense have some kind of boundaries in terms of interactions with each other. So, it does that. It dissolves boundaries between other people, but also within yourself, in your own mind, like the boundaries of fear of thinking you're not good enough or like, you can't do this. Ultimately, it seems to dissolve fear, right? Like a generalized fear or angst that we have, it seems to somehow, some way allows us to see on the other side of that and not listen to that. It's interesting, man. It's interesting.
Very, very much so. And it allows you to understand your ego and this inner voice that oftentimes does try to help you in throughout your life, but oftentimes it tries to trip you up and get you to do things that maybe or get you to makes you hold back and not do things that ordinarily you would have done. So
Yeah.
the ego could be good and bad, and it just allowed me to like understand about this voice trying to dictate my life and how to handle that ego. And it's again, it's a little hard to explain, but when you're there, you'll understand it.
Hmm. Yeah. It shows us our truer self, our truer
Yeah,
way of living outside of the nagging voice in our head that says you're not good enough. It shows you a deeper sense of
exactly.
who we really are, what we're here to do as human beings. At least it has the potential. I'm not saying it does or it doesn't for anybody, but it has the potential to do that. To show us like a more pure sense of what it means to be a human being. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, if somebody looks in the mirror and they look in the mirror and they feel that, oh God, I'm too fat, or I'm ugly, or this or that, or just I don't have a hair. It's basically your ego. I didn't mean anything about the hair. Sorry.
I took offense to that. All right.
Hey, look. I
You still got some.
we could all use a little more. But my point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It doesn't
exactly.
matter because it. Who cares? It's the ego that's trying to say you're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. And you start comparing yourself to other people on perfect people on social media and everything.
Hmm.
And you so yeah, you're right. You get to see yourself in an entirely different perspective and a better perspective.
A conscious perspective.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Conscious perspective. Everything comes back. Everything comes back to the title, right?
There it is, man. Yeah,
Right. Exactly.
yeah.
It's so
Mm,
true, though. It's really true.
mm-hmm. Yep. It's beautiful. It's kind of a miracle. I think we said this in the beginning, but really, it seems like a miracle. And it may seem weird to know somebody that doesn't know any better. You're like, it's a mushroom. What do you mean it's a miracle? But it's like when you're in that state and you're
Yeah.
just so engrossed in the magnificence of it, it's like, yeah, this is it, man. This is it. This is a
Well,
miracle.
these plants were put here for a reason.
Mm,
It's not. I just don't think it's by chance. I don't think it's a coincidence. These plants were given to us for a reason, and then, like you and I are not the one, and people in our generation, we're not the ones that even discovered this. I mean, they've been used by man, or to be politically correct, man and woman, right? For tens of thousands of years. We didn't discover these, and of course, like you just said earlier, that the war on drugs um, limited us and made it appear to be a bad thing. But that'll be over. That'll be over soon. And I wanted to say,
hmm.
like, I'm here in Utah, and Utah is it's a pretty conservative state here. But even in Utah, I've got a good buddy here. Bridger Jensen is his name, and he's real. I'm not really that active as far as like the political part of this and the law, but this guy's really active, and he's making we're making a lot of progress here, even in Utah, to get this. The first step would be to be used as a plant medicine, not recreational, but as a plant medicine, which would be good enough for me for now. But other, there are other states, Oregon, Colorado, I think Michigan. There might be a state or two on the East Coast that are very progressive, and this is definitely advancing for sure. I
Hmm.
don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be a Schedule One forever. I don't think so.
No way. Yeah,
Making a
there's
lot of
no way.
progress.
The
Yeah,
cat's out of the bag at this point. There's no way that we could
absolutely.
go on. The only reason it is because we're living, like I said, in the remnants of that. There's no way, let's say it became legal, hypothetically. There's no way that would happen again. Like you couldn't have the drug war part two. Like that would just not fly.
Right.
Because the only reason is it's Schedule One is because it was made Schedule One so long ago, and it
Right.
takes such a long time and so much effort to change laws. You know what I mean? So yeah, it is just a matter of time at this point, which is the good thing. Even though I wish it could happen right now or could happen
Yeah.
tomorrow, inevitably I do believe it is going to become just part of the psychiatric medicine and
Well,
just part of our lives.
when I was in high school and college, and we were smoking weed that came from Mexico, most likely.
Yeah.
Never in a million years did I ever dream that when I was older, I'd be able to walk into a shop and just buy this over the counter. I mean, we made a ton of progress with stuff like that. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, weed's legal. Forget about that.
I mean,
Take
pretty
that for
much.
granted. But yeah, that's very recent as well.
But it's still I think it's still Schedule One federally though. I'm pretty
Yeah, it
sure.
is.
So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of sucks. But I think that's going to go away as well. But as long as statewide, as long as it's not, and as long as you can, I think the feds aren't going to. Obviously, the feds aren't going to come down on you and say this is Schedule One federally. But as I'm walking out of a weed shop or something or
Mm-hmm.
dispensary
Mm-hmm.
dispensary.
Medical marijuana dispensary. Actually, no, it's not even medical. Yeah, it's not medical anymore. It's recreational. But yeah,
Right,
whatever.
right,
Those are
right.
just labels. These are all just plant medicines that, like you said, are here for a reason. They're from the earth. They're organic,
Yes,
and we don't have
yes,
any
yes.
right to say that you can or can't do such a thing. To be honest with you, it's kind of I like to say it may seem a little extreme, but I like to say the illegality and prohibition of these things. Mushrooms, marijuana. You could even say mescaline, ibogaine, ayahuasca. The whole list of psychedelics and plant medicine is a crime against humanity. And I really do believe that because there's a lot of people suffering and there's a lot of people that could truly be healed if we knew how to use these things and had these incorporated into our lifestyle. There's a lot of literal lives that could be saved from it. So I do believe in the future when we do live in a just world and it's all legal, we will look back at this time. I'm putting this on record. People will look back at this time and be like, what? Almost like we look back at people living in the Stone Age, right? Or we look back at people living in the 1800s with like, I don't know, slavery or something. Like, how could they? How could they live in
Right.
such like
Yeah.
such dark times? Well, I do believe people are going to look back at this time. I mean, this is the I guess you could say the awakening, but like from the 60s on, from the late 50s on to whenever it becomes legal, we'll look back at this time and be like, it was a crime against humanity. I do fully believe that. But
Totally agree with that.
yeah.
And unfortunately, because it is Schedule One, it's stopping a lot of people that are sick from,
Mm-hmm.
the people. I can understand people wanting to totally be on the certain side of the law, and they're not able to access or use this or don't want to because they're afraid of ending up in jail. But meanwhile, this could change their lives and they'd feel better every day. But of course, it's illegal, so they don't do it. But it's really sad. It really is sad.
Yeah. Well, thankfully we got people out there like you spreading the good word.
And you, for sure. That's what we do, right?
Yeah, man. Let's keep on fighting
I
the
mean,
good fight.
how can you and I possibly keep quiet about this? I mean, it's changed our
Exactly.
lives. What am I going to stay in a closet and not tell anybody? I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's life changing. It really is.
Yeah, that's the thing is you can't like you really I felt the same way. Like after a few times I've done it, I said that I have to talk about this. I have to do something about this because it's so magical. No pun intended on the magic mushrooms, but it feels just so magical when you
I
come
mean,
out of
yeah,
a very just a intense trip or microdose, whatever, it just feels so like there's something like I have to. Like there's like I said, there's some kind of slight obligation. Like I need to talk about it to somebody.
I'm the same way. I
And
feel
here we
exactly
are.
the same way. That's
Here
right.
we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, hey man, I think we can probably start to wrap this thing up. Yeah, keep on fighting the good fight, keep on doing your thing. Um, yeah, do you got any last
And
words?
same.
Anything you want to say?
Well, I appreciate you having me, and I think we've in this hour or however long we've been on, we've I think given a lot of great information. One day, if you want to have me, it's too much for this show because I think this was more kind of a little more basic. But if you want to ever have me back, I've got people oftentimes ask like, well, because okay, I want to make it very clear that this is not psilocybin is not just a pill or something that you just ingest every day or a few times a week and you're done and it makes you feel better. There's definitely stuff that you need to do alongside of it. And when I first
Mm,
started, I didn't, I heard that from everybody, and I heard, you got to meditate or do shadow work or enter in your journal, but I never really was clear on exactly what else needs to be done to really turn your life around. But I start outlining those things, and I've got if anybody's interested, I've got a bunch of things that we need to do alongside of this. And after 2 years of experience with this, I think I've got it kind of nailed. So if we ever, I don't know, no pressure, it's up to you, but I could come back and we could talk about what goes along with it. What do you need to do alongside of microdosing to truly change your life? And like me, like right now, I'm not even I'm taking a break from the microdosing, and I feel as good as I want to feel, like really good. But I've incorporated some of these other things, so we could certainly chat about that another time if you like.
oh yeah, for sure. I agree. The whole holistic lifestyle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so important. And let me just ask you
Very,
this.
very.
Do you feel as though the mushrooms got you into that lifestyle? You know, or
Oh,
did they coincide? Is it correlation or is it causation?
yeah. It's a great question. Probably a combination, but I really feel they point. See, remember when I first started the microdosing, I've heard that you have to do other stuff along with it, and I've listened to other people, but I didn't feel like I understood that. But they've absolutely pointed me
Mm,
in the direction of what else needs to be done to be and feel really healthy every day.
mm-hmm.
They've given me that that information that was available. They've guided me there, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
For sure. I believe 100%.
I feel that
Yeah,
100%
yeah.
too. Mm-hmm.
And like my things that I do along might be different than what you do, but as long as they all work, it's totally fine.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I just want to stress this. It's anybody that's listening, this is not a pill that you take every day and then just hope for the best. Um, there are other things that go along with it that will really enhance the change in your life and your thinking.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that. Amen
Yeah,
to that.
totally amen.
Yeah, it's about the lifestyle that we build around it. Yeah, the mushrooms aren't everything. That's for sure. They might just be like a
Oh, right.
catalyst, but
Exactly right.
it's the whole
Exactly right.
package. It's what we bring to life. You know, it's how we
Yeah,
approach this life. And the mushrooms just may allow us to approach life a little bit different. Maybe see life a little bit different and then structure our life a little bit different. Yeah, they're like our helpful
100%.
allies.
That's an understatement. They
Yeah.
really yeah, it's, I know this sounds cliche, but they show you the way. And,
Mm.
2 years ago, I don't know if I would have believed it. If somebody, I don't know if I would have. I could be a little bit disbelieving, something that sounds too good to be true. But they've definitely showed me the way to a much better life. 100%.
Awesome. And on that note, I think we can probably wrap this thing up. Yeah, appreciate your time, effort, and wisdom. Appreciate anybody that has listened this long. Yeah, keep on keeping on. Let's keep on fighting the good fight. Appreciate you.
Hey, same. Thanks for having me, Gary. Really appreciate that too.
All right. Well, peace and love to you. Peace and love to anybody listening in the future. And that's all I gotta say. See you later.